Mark, thank you so much for joining us. How are you, brother?
So great to be invited. Thank you so much, Pete. Appreciate it.
Well, it's a beautiful morning here in Australia. The sun is just coming up and the birds are flying around. And tell me where you are at the moment.
Well, we're about 1 hour south of Boston, Massachusetts in the USA. So we're in an area that's referred to as the South Shore. And it's a beautiful part of the world. You've heard of Cape Cod, perhaps. Many people have.
I've been there.
We're just north of Cape Cod.
Fantastic. Beautiful spot, wonderful seafood around that area as well.
All true. Absolutely right.
And beautiful people. We're going to talk about miracles today. And
indeed.
And I'll hand it over to you to give us your definition of miracles, because I'd like to talk about my own version of that a little bit down the track too. But I want to hand it over to you, Mark, and let you roll with what is a miracle and what have you learned?
Well, first of all, Pete, I'd like to come up a little bit. First of all, I'd like to say that I've spent the past 37 years of my life working with over 60,000 patients from all over the world, people with all kinds of illnesses, all kinds of healthcare issues, healthcare problems, et cetera. And it's something that I noticed very early on, is that I could make much more of a significant difference in helping people and accomplishing health goals with people far more than I ever thought I could, far more than I ever dreamed of. And I think that things like I noticed in my world, compassion inspired me to reach deeper, to try harder. Compassion actually puts the heart into it. It's kind of like if you're talking about any aspect of life, talking about sports, you're talking about business, you're talking about personal development, anything. When you put the passion into it, it gets better. It always goes to a higher level. So my passion came from my compassion. And I found that, when you're working with little kids that are sick and people that are innocent and deserving in every way, it inspires you to try to reach deeper and to try to make a difference with whatever resources you have, whether you're familiar with them or not, whether you're accustomed to utilizing all your resources or not. And I learned early on that we have more special resources. We have the capacity to reach beyond our grasp, and we don't often tap into that. So I decided that I was going to start paying close attention to what worked and what didn't work. I mean, helping people with terminal illnesses that I had no business being able to help, but we were getting it done, and we still get it done with fairly good regularity. And I think the key is that there's an identity crisis. I think we believe that we are just the personalities that we are. We're just the material self, material limitations, ego, et cetera, et cetera. And I think we're so much more than all that. I think we're very heartfelt, we're very soul-felt, we're very spiritual. There's a depth to us in our core and our source. It's much deeper, it's much more powerful than simply operating out of our material self, out of our ego self. So I found early on that by re-identifying myself at a deeper level, at a more soulful level, that is identifying with my source, as I like to say, my core, and to work at a deeper level with people with a greater level of concern and care and compassion, like I said, and passion for getting a result, for helping people, for serving people, for making a difference, helped me to make progress as a healer, as a doctor, as a person who has given these remarkable experiences over the last 37 years. And I think that I've been able to tap into it. And I said, I want to make, before I leave the world, I want to help the world understand what I've been doing and what I've seen in my little corner of the world. And it's remarkable. It's just been truly remarkable. And I've learned, and I believe that in the message in miracles is that we're all miracle makers, everybody. There's no one miracle maker better than another one. We're all potentially the greatest miracle maker in the world on any given day. And it's a question really of whether we tap into our soul, our spirit, our core, our innermost self, our power bases, because our power bases are not ego. Our power bases are not personality. Our power bases are unseen parts of ourselves, in many cases untapped. So my message with my book and my message with my film is to inspire people to tap into their unlimited potential and to experiment with it, to trust it, to have faith and belief in it, to develop it, to strengthen it, to make it more powerful every day of their life. And I think that's where miracles come from, in my opinion. So it starts with identity crisis. miracles are not available in a world that doesn't have the right identity to understand them. So if we strictly come from the place of ego and the place of willpower and the place of material self, material limitations, there's no talk of miracles there. They can't happen in that zone. So miracles happen for people who can go deeper and who can go broader and who can go to higher levels of possibility and potential, and have the positive thinking and have the strong sense of mind and spirit that they're not willing to take no for an answer. So that's where miracles come from, Pete, in my opinion.
There's so much to unpack there and then to go on a journey, but I understand, and I'd love for you to delve a little deeper into the identity crisis and the fear of one's own potential, because it seems to me that seems to be one of the keys here, is the unlocking of the potential, but the fear of that at the same time.
Yes, that's definitely true. I think that, first of all, fear and love are the two extreme variables in the universe. Where there's enough love, you can overcome fear. And where there's more fear than there is love and faith and trust, there's only disappointment, pain, and suffering. So I think that we need to challenge ourselves to love ourselves, to love at a deeper level. And I think, and the word love in and of itself, it has an identity crisis attached to it. I mean, love isn't just looking good in a pair of blue jeans. Love is a very complex, multidimensional perspective, energetically speaking. And I think by tapping into love that is soulful, compassionate, caring, and has a commitment attached to it that doesn't bring fear, or that isn't limited by fear. I think that's powerful love. That's love power that can actually make miracle differences. And I think that fear is something that we need to overcome within our own lives, each one of us. And I think we're tested every day of our lives, thank God. And the tests would enable us to climb up that ladder and get into the heavenly skies, get into the higher realms, get into the higher possibilities. So I think that fear needs to be overcome in order for miracles to be understood.
Tell us a bit about your background, because you have had an eclectic journey. Some might say eclectic, or a miraculous journey yourself in gathering knowledge and obtaining wisdom in different fields. So talk to us about the different fields in which you've walked and journeyed along and soaked in and absorbed, so that you can become not only the sponge and the student, but then ultimately the teacher at the same time.
Yes, I think that, I often talk about starting out 37 years ago. I thought I was in the business of helping people lose a little bit of weight, go on a good nutrition plan, lose 10 pounds, look good in a bathing suit. That's what I thought I was there for, And almost instantaneously, I had people coming in who were destitute. Why it works out that way, who could tell? I don't know. But I was planning on things being much simpler, much more cut and dry, much more weight loss oriented, et cetera, et cetera. You got headaches, take some vitamin C, whatever, But I think that within a matter of days from opening my doors, there were people coming to me. This is in the early 80s, 82 to be exact, that were absolutely drawn to my work. They sought me out, they found me, and they came in and they had no ability to connect with the right kind of assistance and help in the traditional medical world and the traditional healthcare world. So people are coming to me left and right. And I said, I don't know why this is happening, but I have to adapt pretty quickly because it's happening and I have to do something about it. I have to be good with it. I have to find a way to negotiate within the context of this change that I'm being pushed through in a way. So I started out with a master's degree in nutrition. bachelor's degree in psychology. So my bachelor's degree was undergraduate. I got that in psychology. And then my master's degree, as I said, was in nutrition. I was working on my PhD in health. My doctoral degree was something I worked on while I was actually starting my appointments. But I was in the business of trying to help people to detox their lives emotionally, spiritually, physically, et cetera, et cetera. So in other words, the whole concept was trying to get people inspired to take better care of their body, mind, and spirit, and then let the chips fall where they may. So whatever your disease, whatever your sickness, whatever your condition are, I wasn't looking to just drug them. I was looking to balance them so that they could actually have the better properties within their own being to balance out and to resume a healthy, normal lifestyle. So I studied a tremendous amount about herbs, nutrition, et cetera, et cetera. I studied and went to millions of seminars, various programs around the country. I studied hard. And this is during a time when there wasn't a lot of that happening. It wasn't happening in 1982, but I found the people that I found and I studied with them, worked with them, and was fortunate to do that. But I also found that a lot of the patients I'd see, again, I distinctly remember a 7-year-old girl that came to me with cancer from fairly nearby, Plymouth, Massachusetts. And her name was Nicole. I'll never forget her. And she cried to me and asked me to help her any way that I could. And she just opened my heart up. She opened my heart up wide open. And I just remember thinking, I may not be able to help her the way she deserves to be helped, but there's something I can do to help her. There's something I can do to make a difference. There's something I can do to make her life better. So I just made a connection with her at a very deep spiritual level. And we became really close before she passed away. And she did eventually pass away, cancer that she had. But I remember thinking to myself, I never studied. I never learned anything in the world of schooling, education, that taught me how to tap into my compassion. Nicole taught me that. And many people like Nicole afterwards taught me as well. And I still taught today, to this day. Never stops. So there's an education process in life, in the dharma of life, if you will. And it's there for you if you're willing to embrace it, to tap into it, to work with it, to surrender to it. And I did a lot of learning and growing with patients like that, still doing it to this day. But then I eventually got my doctoral degree, and I've written 7 books. I wrote my first book and started writing my first book called The Wu Wei in 1989. And that book is still a very pertinent book today, all these years later, because it's about the way of things. It's about Taoism. Taoism is a beautiful philosophical concept from the Far East that's all about embracing that there is a way of things. There's an energy to all things. There's a flow. There's a natural ebb and flow. There's a natural process that takes place in the universe that makes everything work out the way it works out. And to tap into that is to be able to gain the wisdom from learning, from observing the way that actually helps us to heal, live a balanced life, and become whole. So I think holism is something that I learned from Taoism. A lot of the books that I read, a lot of the studies that I did, I studied with Master Hua Ching Ni. He was 100 years old when I first started work with him. I studied with him. I studied with Tom Tam. I studied with a number of different Chinese practitioners who I learned a lot from about Oriental medicine and the philosophy of holism, et cetera. And I spent a lot of time practicing that as I learned it. And I've incorporated it into my books, into my practice, and my lifestyle. But I'd say that most of what I've learned, I learned from patients. I still learn from patients. They're my great teachers.
Beautiful. I want to explore the word whole because that definitely resonated with me. And what does it mean to be whole in your perception of this and what you've discovered with your patients over the years? And how does someone... I've got to be careful with my words here, because I honestly believe that we're all whole. It's just that we've forgotten. So tell me about the whole philosophy.
I think you're right, Pete. I think we are all whole. There's no question in my mind about that. I think it's almost like the first thing we talked about, the identity crisis, the re-identification process. The re-identification process. I think that many people get a message from society, from the inculcation process and the cultural development, I should say, of our lives. Many of us seem to get a message that we're material, we're ego, we're physical, but that's pretty much what we are. An identity that's wrapped around personality, ego, materialism. Those aren't bad things, but they're only partial. They're beautiful things, but they're partial. They represent a partiality. And to go along with that, I think we need to understand that we're very deep. We're very deep. And the funny part about that is people discover their depth by accident sometimes. People don't often hunt it down. They don't look at it. They don't study for it. They don't try to work at tapping into it. In all cases, a lot of people do, of course. But in so many cases, I think people, like when you're at a funeral of a loved one, and you haven't cried for 2 years, and you just can't help but hold the tears back. You can't help but release them. Your heartfelt self, your emotional self opens up and flows. And you weren't counting on that. Or to have something happen, like I talked about with Nicole, little Nicole. Somewhere in this world, there was somebody today that became completely committed to helping somebody beat a problem that was insurmountable. And somebody inspired somebody healed somebody helped them overcome that insurmountable challenge with love, the power of love, the power of expectancy, determination. I think that they put enough energy into it. As I said, if we put enough energy into it, that works to our advantage. And somewhere today that happened. Somewhere on the planet that happened. Does that mean it couldn't happen to anybody else? It just happened to them? Is it just designed for them? No. Back to your point, we're all whole and we all have that door open to miracle healing potential. It's a question of whether we have the access to tap into a higher level, because miracles happen at that higher level. Miracles don't happen at the mundane levels. So let's say that there's two predominant selves, the unwhole self and the whole self. The unwhole self is just compartmental. The whole self is body, mind, spirit, the whole picture, everything that you energetically represent is all part of your precious total self-being, But I think that when people tap into that, like I said earlier, the sky's the limit. Anything's possible.
I think I could talk to you for hours, Mark. It's beautiful to hear your words. Where do you think we are as a society? Let's take the last 12 months as an example, talking about being whole or potentially our version of ourselves being unwhole, but expand that out to a society where we have pretty much shut down the world for a viral contagion, if that's the right terminology. And I've got my own thoughts about this, and we don't need to probably go into where it originated from, how it's playing out as an agenda, but more so on that holistic view of how you've perceived the world react to this. Have they reacted in a way, our leadership, so to speak, the medical associations, have they reacted from a space of love and compassion and wholeness, or has it been a response potentially of fear and uncertainty?
Well, I believe that everything is energy. I mean, we had Dr. Werner Heisenberg, who won the Nobel Prize in 1937, I think it was, and Albert Einstein, who said basically the world, the universe rather, is 99.999% energy, 99.999% energy. and 0.0001% matter. So what we see, we think is what is. But it comes down to perception, not having the capability of necessarily deciphering what that reality represents. But the point of the matter is everything's energy. Energy is about frequency. It's about vibration. So when you have things like love, real powerful, compassionate, true love, deep abiding love, that produces such an energy field, such a vibration, such a frequency. It's so powerful. You can look at the work of Royal Rife. Royal Rife, back in the 1920s, 1930s, studied the energetic fields of all diseases and all conditions and all organs and glands and people and emotions and all that stuff. He broke everything down to energetic properties, and he did a magnificent job analyzing it. And there are thousands of frequencies that he published, thousands and thousands of frequencies for everything, every virus, every bacteria, every emotion. It's incredible. Everything's energy. So there's no mistaking the fact that everything's energy. And I think that I look at the world from energetic properties, and it's my contention that the world is being really challenged right now, dramatically challenged. And I think that it's a time of paradox. It's interesting. I think the energy is peaking and crashing at the same time. I think that there's this magnificent crash that's going to take place. This magnificent collapse of the wave, this wave collapse, as they say in physics. I think it's a time where it's a time for it's like a tipping point time, where everything that is good is really good. It's so powerful. I mean, the kind of thoughts that we're talking about, the kind of books that I'm writing right now that people are loving, and the reviews are amazing, and people are relating to it because they feel in their core that there's something more powerful than what they've become familiar with. They're starved. They're hungry for tapping into it and expressing it and becoming comfortable with it and tapping it into, turning it into an everyday process and reaching beyond their grasp to accomplish and to achieve and to become unlimited. That's what people want right now. And by the same token, you've got this darkness, this low vibration, low frequency. It's all about control. It's about politics, the power of politics, the power of resources, money, materialism. And again, I think that there's always been part of the holism is these extreme differentials. They're a natural part of holism, let's face it. The difference right now is, in my opinion, you've got the vibration that is elevated and the vibration that is low, magnificently separating. I mean, it's incredible. There's, like I said, there's a wave collapse right now because the good is getting better than it's ever been and the bad is getting worse than it's ever been. And I think that there's a time of profound shifting and changing going on right now. I think there's a transformational explosion taking place. That's what we're observing. We're observing this just transformation. People don't understand, they understand that there's something heavy happening. It's like when there's a little kid and there's a divorce going on in a family. The little kids can't articulate. They're not sophisticated. They don't know about divorce and lawyers and all that stuff and money. They don't know about those things, but they feel and they sense that something dramatic is taking place. It's a little frightening, if not very frightening, and they're not quite sure where it's all going to go. But it's change that has to happen. And they eventually have to get caught up with that and find a way to accept the fact that change had to happen and the fact that they had to adapt to it in a way that made it part of the reality that they could actually still function in. I think the same thing is true of all of us right now. I think we're all like children going through a divorce. And we're all like kids that are suffering from confusion, suffering, pain, worry, fear, anxiety. And I think we're trying to get ourselves grounded. We're trying to get a footing now. What do we make of all this stuff? Where is it all going to lead? Is it ever going to get back to normal the way it was? All those questions are looming in all hearts and minds right now. But I think that these are very critical times for a transformative shift. I think, again, hopefully after that divorce, things get better. People move on. They meet other people. Life can be healed. the children become healed. There's an interchange of wholeness that can actually take place. I think the same thing is true in the world right now. It sounds scary. It feels scary. It feels uncertain. But I believe that what's happening externally in the world and in the universe is so scary that it's turning people internally to the universe, as I like to call it. So when the universe is scary, the universe becomes an inviting place. And if the universe is doing anything right now, it's creating, it's either allowing or creating a lot of radical change and havoc and fear and anxiety to chase us back within ourselves.
Can we bottle that? You mentioned the word surrender earlier on in the conversation. Is this a point in human history where we surrender, or is it a point as well, talking about paradoxes, where we also act at the same time? Surrender and action, because it's an interesting thing that I've been thinking about a lot over the last year. Do you surrender and let go, let things just go as they're going to go? Or can an individual or a community actually make a change where we put into action?
There are certain precepts that I write about in the book. And in the book, The Way of Miracles, the precepts refer to some of the fundamental realities in the universe and in life. One of them is about holism. One of them is about energy. Everything is energy. One of the other precepts is that the universe is dualistic. It's all duality. It's yin and yang. There's not singularity to anything. There's duality. So everything that we're confronted with is dualistic. So we're always surrendering to one thing and tackling another. You can't escape the duality. But I think the point of fact that's most fascinating about that reality is we're changing the things that we're surrendering to, and we're changing the things that we're attacking or working on. And I think, again, as I said a minute ago, you've got more people who are frightened right now, who are scared, who are intimidated by transformation, that they don't understand it's bigger than they are. I mean, you could. I talk to people all day long, by the dozens, and you could go out in public and just run a random interview, man on the street interview. You could pick 25 people. And I'd wager to say that if you asked any of them, if they're a little bit uncertain or frightened about the ways of the world right now, I'd say 100% of them would say yes. I mean, I don't think any of them would say no. So people are afraid. I think when people are afraid, like I said a minute ago, they're more inclined to be drawn inward. They hunker down. It's kind of like, what is this? When you think about a boxer has a certain position. They're hunched over and they're kind of defensive. They're bent over in a protective mode. And I think whenever you're threatened, there's certain defensive modes that you're instinctually drawn to. And I think spiritually, it's internal versus external. I mean, if there's a storm coming through, you're not going to go out on the porch and drink mint julep tea. The storm coming through, you're going to get in the house and hunker down and batten the hatches. And I think that's what we're doing. I think we're all weathering the storm right now. We're going inside. We're going within ourselves. We're going within our ultimate home, which is our source, our soul. And I think we've spent so much time ignoring our soul and our source. And we've been so distracted by materialism and the attraction of the material world, which is part of the whole, but it's not the whole. So I think we need to stop for a minute and think about the direction that the universe is forcing us to move in. And the universe is impelling us to go within and to tap into that part of our precious being that is the core of who we are. And in the final analysis, I think we could have looked at these trying times, these difficult periods, as a time when we finally landed within ourselves and came home.
For anybody that's listening out there, they might be wondering what are some of the tips, tools, solutions, actions that they may take when you're talking about returning home and going inwards into the universe.
Well, I think that it's about intent. It's all about intent. I think some of it is organized, like meditation, prayer, yoga, Tai Chi, things like that. But some of it is just intent based. Just having the mindset that you're committed, unspoken, just conceptually through intent, just you're committed to everything that's light oriented, the vibration that's high, the light that's bright, the love that's strong, the faith, the belief, the trust, all that. I think you can just program that into yourself. Reformat your mind. Your mind is your computer. And you need to consider reformatting the direction, the intent, the conceptual profile of your thought process so that you can become what you think. You know, it's like the Buddhists talked about that. What we think we become. I mean, how much more powerful or simple can it get than that? What we think we become. So we need to think differently. We need to trust that by thinking high energy, like I said, powerful love, bright light, warm connection, soulful connection, expanding, going deeper within, and sharing it, serving with it. So it's in other words, if I find my soul self, it's not enough. If I find my soul self and then serve, that's what it's all about.
Tell me about the painting that's right behind you, if it is yours.
It is mine. That's the Buddha. It's just a picture of the Buddha in meditation. I shouldn't say just. It's a picture of the Buddha in meditation. But, you know, the Buddha was asked by one of his disciples many moons ago. He said, "What have you gained from meditation?" And the Buddha said, "I gained nothing from meditation. But I'll tell you what I lost. I lost anger, I lost fear, I lost anxiety, I lost depression." So I think that picture reminds me that it's a choice as to whether what I lose and what I gain. So I can lose depression, anxiety, fear, negativity by engaging in meditation. And that's the Buddha's message. I mean, what is meditation all about? Meditation is all about stopping the obsessive compulsive mind process. And the mind is, 10,000 monkeys. And have those 10,000 monkeys just chatter. I mean, think about this. The conscious mind formulates 2,000 bits of information per second. So that's the conscious mind, 2,000 bits of information per second, the conscious mind. Think about that. Then you want to think about the unconscious mind, 400 billion bits of information per second it processes. It's rifling through thought processes like so rapid fire, it's impossible to conceptualize it. Again, the conscious mind, 2,000 bits of information per second, unconscious, 400 billion. So I think it's a matter of realizing that meditation slows that all down. And when it slows that all down, there's less distraction about what isn't. There's more room for what is.
You have a film coming out soon as well. Tell me about that and why you were compelled to create this and be a part of it.
Well, Christina Vercillo-Bresson is a brilliant producer, amazing woman. She's brilliant. Christina did a magnificent job. I contacted her, I guess about 6-7 years ago it was. And we talked on the phone every weekend for probably 4 hours for the better part of 5 years. I mean, we spent a lot of time planning this out, but our goal, and I'm so blessed, because I was brought to her and we were brought together. And there's no question about that. Every time you have these relationships in life that are dharmic, you just know they're dharmic. They're not, no accidents, especially if they happen for a reason, etc. That was one of those. So she and I talked about our goal. Our goal was to heal the world spiritually, to bring energy to the world that would inspire them, to make a difference in the world consciousness, the global consciousness. We wanted to create an energy field that affected global consciousness at a higher level. That was our goal. And we mapped this film out. The film is the same as the book title. The book title and the film title are the one and the same, The Way of Miracles. The film, The Way of Miracles, is going to be released. It's actually in Sedona, Arizona, on the 20th to the 26th. And that's going to be the global the global kickoff. So that'd be the 20th to the 26th at the film festival. It's the Illuminate Film Festival in Arizona. And we have a number of different festivals in Israel, India. We're going to be all over the place. But the film's getting good reviews. And it's the film and the book are both about the same thing. They don't track each other exactly, but they're both inspired to produce the same result. In the film, actually, there's six patients that I've helped. One woman who had a brain tumor the size of a small tennis ball. And we worked together nutritionally and natural medicine. And in 5 months, it shrunk and it vanished. And she's one of the lead stories. There's another story about a man with Parkinson's who was diagnosed with Parkinson's. Now he's running 3 miles a day. There's great stories. And there's a story about a woman who was told that she never have children. Sorry, the fertility doctors in Mass General Hospital ran her through every possible test imaginable, and they said, sorry, you just don't have enough fertility to make it happen. It's not going to happen. Just go home, forget about it. We're sorry that you wanted to have children. It's not going to happen. And we worked with her, and she's got 2 children now, 2 beautiful babies. So there's some great stories. They're miracle stories. And again, back to what I said earlier, I believe in miracles because I believe that there's a process that enables me to tap into that at a higher level of consciousness. And if I'm tapping in at a higher energy level, I'm traveling where the miracles travel. If you want miracles, you got to go to where they are. They're not in the mundane place; they're in the special place, and you got to go to your special place in order to tap into that higher realm. And the film exhibits that beautifully, and the book writes about it in more philosophical and more spiritual terms. But the film is beautiful. It's an absolutely beautiful film. There's another woman who actually had breast cancer, stage 3 breast cancer. And she came to see me and she tells a story. And every time I see her tell a story, I break down. I can't control it. It's crazy. She tells a story about how she goes with her family to a ski slope, I think up in Vermont, New Hampshire. And she said that she was used to not taking part in life because, cancer puts an end to life and it just depresses you and wipes you out and challenges you in every way imaginable. Stage 3, well, it didn't look good. It wasn't looking good for her at all. And so she went with her family coached her, come on a ski trip. Okay, I'll go with you. She got up to the top of the mountain, got in the lodge. She watched everybody around her skiing, all the family, relatives, all that stuff. And somebody came into her and said, it's a beautiful day, gorgeous day, 30 degrees, bright sunny skies. The snow's powdery and beautiful. How about you take the bunny hill? No, I can't do that. Wait a minute. Maybe I can do that. I'm going to do it. I'm going to rent some skis and you never know, for the heck of it, I'm going to do it. She's skiing down the slope. And she tells the story that she's skiing down the slope and she's free flowing down the hill. And she started to cry. And she became tapped into the fact that there was an energy in her that she never tapped into before. And that energy came out on that ski slope, mysteriously enough. So I worked with her not too long thereafter. And she changed her whole mindset about life, about possibilities. And when she was going on that ski slope, she decided that she was going to live. She became determined to live, and she was going to find somebody to help her do that. So she called me, and together we worked, and she beat breast cancer. But there's great stories in the film. The film is loaded with some beautiful stories.
Yeah, I believe we're in discussions to be able to present it as well and share it through our platform for anybody that's listening on the Evolve Network. So
thank you so much, Pete. Thank you.
My pleasure. I mentioned at the start of this conversation that I've got my own definition of what a miracle is, and
yes,
once upon a time I used to believe in miracles, and I'll explain it in this way. Like yourself, we've helped people nutritionally over the years, and we had a program that ran for 4 or 5 years, a 10-week eating program and philosophy program. And over that time, out of the 100,000 people that adopted it, I never got anybody telling me they got sicker from adopting what we shared. But one of the things that I noticed over those 3 or 4 or 5 years was the amount of stories that I personally got to share through social media. I think we shared 3,000 of these stories of people reversing type 2 diabetes, putting their autoimmune disease into remission. Some people talked about cancer, others talk about autism and behavioral changes, whether it be depression, anxiety, and the list goes on and on and on and on.
Magnificent. That's great.
And the one thing that I came to realize is that these miraculous stories, once you hear hundreds of them or thousands of them, they don't seem so miraculous anymore. So because
that's my contention. That's my contention. My contention is miracles are norm. They're a norm that happens on a different level, a different plane. And if you go to that plane, there's a norm of miracle activity there. But again, as I said earlier, whether you're a businessman, a sports star, or whatever, there's miracles that happen every day. And it's just this level of beingness that we're impelled to tap into and to channel, to release. If we emanate from the source, we emanate from the deeper part of our being. Miracles are normally in those places. Miracles exist in places that you got to go to. You can't compromise. You can't operate at the mundane level and get a miracle to happen. It doesn't work that way. You got to go to where they are. You got to travel to a different sphere of consciousness. But I think the work that you talked about is representative of a lot of brilliant healing work, miracle work that's going on all over the world. And I think that our book and our film and our practice are just concerned with the idea that the world needs to hear more about it. And the world needs this conversation. The world needs this conversation now more than ever.
Yeah, I agree. One of the common themes that obviously you've spoken about throughout this conversation, and one thing that I noticed about these miraculous changes in these people is that they took complete and utter control of their lives. And I'm not saying that they shunned having advice or working with people. In fact, it was the opposite. It was, what am I prepared to do to love myself, nourish myself, and walk a path that perhaps I have avoided for a long period of my life, and embrace that passion for the activities and the things that I want to do in this experience of life. And it's such a beautiful common denominator that when people tap into that, their will to live, their joy to live, and
of course,
and self-responsibility, but also seeking out those coincidences or those chance encounters with people like yourself, or a book, or something they've seen, a film like you're creating. It just can be that little spark, like that woman going down the ski slopes, that spark that just ignites the flame. That's
the word. Spark is a good word for it. That's great. I say that there's four different things I mentioned in the book when it comes to miracles: rejecting miracles, accepting miracles, expecting miracles, and creating miracles. So a lot of people reject miracles, obviously. A lot of people accept, okay, I'll accept the possibility that's where most people land. Then you have expecting miracles. That's a different breed right there. It's trying to move into a realm of more certitude. Then the last one is creating miracles. That's right. I'm not waiting for anybody. I'm not expecting God to do it. I'm expecting to do it myself. I'm counting on it. I'm planning on it. I'm expecting it in a way that I'm certain of it. So again, rejecting, accepting, expecting, and creating. Those are the key 4 words when it comes to miracles. I propose we all start working at a level of expecting or creating, either one.
Mark, I just want to tell you, brother, I love you. Thank you so much for sharing your time with us today and your wisdom.
Love you, Pete. Thank you so much.
And your flame as well. Very contagious.
God bless you. Thank you so much.
See you, brother.
Peace.